All right, let me share my screen. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to do this in three different parts. So the first part is going to be just a quick introduction to Project 2, which is about doing confidence intervals and hypothesis tests with your original data from your Project 1. You're just reusing that same data. Right now, again, it's just to introduce, what the project is about. So right here are your instructions, a template that you can use. There's also an example, and of course, there's going to be a spot for you to upload it. As far as like what you're going to be aiming to do, right here, it just tells you that you're going to be using your original data, and you're going to be making four different graphs. Two of them are going to be confidence intervals, and two of them are going to be hypothesis tests. Now, when you're done, you're going to submit something that looks like this, which is just a recap of what the purpose of your research project is. What were your variables? Who are you investigating? And then you're going to have your graphs, and you're also going to, with each of those, do just short little interpretations, a lot like what you did in the homework, right? Like interpretations of what the intervals suggest. Can we reject, not reject the null hypothesis? And then one thing I thought would also be really cool is that you just make some sort of write a little something that relates what you did in your project to one of your articles. And it can be like really short, really brief, but just, hey, I found that this proportion of people who do this, and one of my articles had also said that usually there's kind of a similar proportion to that. Or you could say, I found like that there might be a relationship here, which is interesting because this other article said there should be kind of correlation with it, just something to tie it in. And then as we're ending the course, just one little part that's just you saying, if you were to continue to expand your research, like what else might you do to, extend it, broaden it. And then I've also got an example. Yeah, so you can use that as a template. And then right here is an example of already a completed version of the product that I from one of my previous students. Now, one of my previous students was not actually Pedro Pascal, but their purpose was investigating GPA for younger students, and also whether students, what their opinion about the negative impacts, if they felt that social media was something that impacted them. And then the two main groups, again, you should have two main groups that you're comparing. This was just male versus female. In the first graph you're going to make is a bootstrap of the difference in means. And so this right here was comparing whether the GPA differs between male and female. So you'll upload your data. You'll click on whatever your quantitative variable is. You'll click on your two groups, and you'll write something like this. Since my interval, or for this student, since 0 was not in the interval, it suggests that there might be a difference between GPA for male and female. But again, of course, you'll do this with your data, your context, whoever you were studying, and then you'll do the hypothesis test. Now, one of the main things in this one is you can decide, like your data will let you know whether you should do a less than or a greater than. In this situation, female had a lower average. So that's why you see this here, that the mu, or the average for female, we're doing a test to see whether their GPA is less than the average for male. And also, they knew to do a left tail because their statistic, female was lower by this negative amount. So that's also a way to decide whether you'll be doing left tail, right tail. And you can see there's going to be your statistic whenever you do this. There's that negative 0.17. And so you would bootstrap it. You would put your statistic down on the bottom of the graph. You'll get your p-value, and then you'll do this. Since this p-value is too large, your conclusion will be, that you do not reject HO. There's not enough evidence that the first group has a lower average. than the second group. And again, you might, whenever you do your data, if yours comes out to be positive here, mine, this one under the example is negative. If yours comes out to be positive, then you would do a right tail test. Then for your other two graphs, it's difference in proportions. I think the one with means is a lot more straightforward. Whenever you do your difference in proportions, you'll need your fractions. So look, I'll show you here. Yeah, you'll need to figure out what your fractions are, and I'll show you in my other recording like how to make sure you get the correct fractions. But the 0.718 is the well, actually this is just the bootstrapping. Yeah, so we're doing whether, and this one it's whether male and female say that social media is has a negative impact on them, and you can see whenever you bootstrap, you'll bootstrap 1,000 of them, and then you can see down here at the bottom that it's got the interval like 0.385, 0.962. And just like the other one, since zero is not in the interval, there might be a difference in the proportion of female male who say uh, that there's a negative impact because of social media. So again, just kind of use mine here as a guide of like what all to include. That way you get the full credit, right? You want to just be as you want to be. You don't have to be long winded, but you also need to make sure you have the key information in there. Like what was the interval? Um, was zero in there, not in there? And if zero's not in there, then just say a little statement. There might be a difference between the groups. And then same thing here. You got the same statistic, the 0.718. Again, that's going to be whenever you do this, your statistic is going to be right here in the corner. And that's the difference between the two groups. Now, because it's positive, that's why I would say you need to do a right tail, and you'll put your statistic down the bottom. You'll get your p-value. And I got a p-value. This one got a p-value of 0. But that's what you're going to end up doing for this part of the project is, what's your HO, what's your HA, what are you testing whether the proportion for whoever your group one is, whether it's higher or lower than the second group. Now you can do two tails if you want, but I think most of us, whenever we see our statistic, if it's positive, do a right tail. If it's negative, do a left. If it's negative, do a left tail. If it's positive, do a right tail. Whenever you compare the two groups, and then you'll write up your, the p-value was 0 or whatever p-value you get. You're going to use your p-value to say whether you can reject, not reject, whether there is or not enough evidence for what you were testing. And I would start doing this at the moment you feel like you're getting really comfortable with hypothesis tests. So like chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6, those are like the times that we're learning all these things. And then again, I just did a quick little, there was one article that said that about 24% of the students said social media is a negative factor. And that's the way of like trying to tie this student's project into like one of their articles, and then sort of the limitations or what the student would do moving forward is maybe try to get a bigger sample, try to get more of a mixture of people in their sample. Because I know this student, whenever they said that they collected their data, everybody seemed to be, it was like everybody was part of like their church group, and so they felt like there was maybe some bias because of that. Or everyone I think was part of like a homeschool like co-op. And so she was saying maybe it would have probably been best if she had gotten maybe some students who are like outside of her immediate community. Also, maybe there's other variables to explore whenever it comes to like why students say social media is like a negative thing. So again, the last two parts are just kind of you doing a quick little like wrap up of like how it relates to your article, and then like what you would do if you were to continue to explore the topic. But that's all that I'm doing in this little recording is just showing you sort of like the goal. You're making your 4 graphs. Here, and I'm not going to do it right now, but I'll show you real quick in Stackey. Um, then on my separate video, I'll actually show you how to make the graphs. But yeah, you're doing these two. You're making a bootstrap, and then you're doing a confidence interval. You're doing confidence interval here for the bootstrapping. Then you're doing a test for the difference in means, for your two groups, and then you're doing these two. So all four of these right here are the graphs that you're making. But you'll need to go to this one just to help you first get an idea of like what are your fractions for like your two groups. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording there. That's just a quick little, hey, here's what you're gonna be doing, and then on my next video, I'm gonna show you how do you actually make the two graphs for your confidence intervals and for your hypothesis test.